Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting game from round 10 of this year's Tata Steel Masters edition. It is Parham Maghsoodloo versus Magnus Carlsen, and going into round 10 both of them have already suffered two losses. Interestingly, both of them lost to Abdusatorov, and they would very much enjoy grabbing a full point in this game. Magnus, he's pretty much used to winning every tournament, and now he has recovered from the two losses. He also won two games. He will be looking for a way to take a full point from Parham, even though he has the black pieces, and that's why he goes out of theory very early on in this game, as early as move 7, as you'll see very soon. So let's dive straight into it. Parham with the white pieces opens with d4. We have d5 for Magnus, c4, we have e6, and now knight to c3. Knight f6, the queen's gambit declined is on the board, and we have the exchange variation. Captures, and bishop to g5. Very popular. Bishop to e7 and pawn to e3. The so-called positional line, we have h6, bishop to h4, and now there are hundreds and hundreds of games in the database where just castles is played here, but Magnus goes bishop to g4, and there is only one game in the database where this was played, as the white queen is attacked. Queen to a4 check was played in that game. That's weird arrow, but here we have queen to b3 by Parham. Sorry, queen to b3 was played, but Parham goes queen to a4 check, and it is now as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So Magnus blocks with pawn to c6, and now bishop to d3. Just continuing development, completely ignoring Magnus's bishop on g4. We have castles now. And pawn to h3, bishop to h5, and queen back to c2 now, putting pressure on this long diagonal. Also, bishop to g6 is no longer an option, as Magnus Parham controls the g6 square twice. So here we have pawn to c5 by Magnus, attacking the center, as Parham's king is still in the center of the board, but this also means he has to sacrifice a pawn. And Parham goes for that pawn. Pawn to g4, we have c captures on d4, e captures on d4, and bishop to g6. And that's why bishop captures on g6 just wins a pawn, or so you would think. F captures on g6, queen captures on g6, and now Magnus plays knight captures on g4. Seems like a piece sacrifice, but not really, as he's also attacking the undefended bishop on h4. And now you could capture the knight, or you could capture the bishop, or you could play queen to e6 check. The problem with bishop captures on e7 is that queen captures with check, and now once you block this, also knight captures on f2, and Magnus is just very close to winning here. So that's why Parham goes queen to e6 with check. Now the bishop is attacked twice, so rook to f7, blocking check. Here we have h captures on g4. You could also consider a move like knight to f3 to maybe add a defender to the bishop, or bishop back to g3, but Parham likes h captures on g4. We have bishop captures on h4, and knight to f3 now. The rook is pinned, so no worries. We have queen to f6, Magnus offers a trade, and Parham trades. Queen captures, bishop captures, and now knight captures on d5. So if you consider everything, it does seem that Parham won a pawn here. So what's Magnus's idea, sacrificing a pawn like this with the black pieces? He goes knight to c6, now he puts pressure on the d4 pawn, and rook to d1. Parham defends, we have rook to e8 with check now. Knight back to e3, and now rook to e4, just putting more pressure on white's pawns here. The g4 pawn is attacking, well, it's defended by the knight, but it's a very unpleasant position to be in, especially with the king on e1. So here, pawn to d5, Parham finds the best move, and Magnus goes knight to b4. Now looking to win back some material. The a2 pawn is hanging, the b2 pawn is hanging. Also, you have to worry about knight to c2 check, as the knight on e3 is pinned. And Parham continues very strong. Pawn to d6, he just advances his passed pawn, and he wants to win the game. Knight to c2 check by Magnus, not going for any pawns here. We have king to e2, and now knight captures on e3, removing the defender of the g4 pawn. So f captures on e3, and now rook captures on g4, and you have this position where the material is even, and Parham should think very hard about what his next move will be, and his next move should be pawn to d7. This is the best way to play, and then Magnus has to block with bishop to d8, and so on. There are many ways to continue the game. However, he instead, after rook to g4, played rook to d5. probably with the idea of trading off the knight for bishop, going for this fork, but Magnus doesn't allow it. He plays rook to d7, and now this is pretty much pointless. If you go knight to e5 now, then you just blunder the d6 pawn. So instead, after rook to d7, Parham plays rook to f1, and here just b3 was the better move, just getting that pawn out of harm's way. But maybe he thought, okay, then I run into some rook to g2 check action, then maybe I have to give up the a2 pawn. But not really. Even if you go for this pawn to b3 and rook to g2 check, just king to d3, and Magnus is not in time to claim the a2 pawn. If you play rook captures on a2, then e4, then e5, then e6, and it will be very hard to defend this. But okay, after rook to d7, rook to f1 was played, but this is pretty much a waste of time. Now Magnus just gobbles up the b2 pawn, bishop captures on b2, and now we have rook to d3, preparing to defend this pawn with pawn to a3, bishop back to f6, and now comes rook to d5. Some remaneuvering of the rooks here by Parham, but Magnus finds the very strong rook to b4. Now he can play rook to b2 with check. So rook f to d1, preparing to block check and save his pawn, but now king to f7. We have rook 1 to d3, and the problem here for Parham, aside from him playing weird rook moves, is that he is down to 30 seconds on the clock, and Magnus has some 40 minutes on the clock. And this is only move 32, so he still needs to make 8 moves to reach time control. So king to e6, the move that pretty much seals the deal for Magnus. Now the rook on d5 will be attacked if this rook moves, and this makes it very difficult for Parham to actually defend. Knight to d2 was played, now rook to a4. Attacks the a2 pawn, but now a3 that was played in the game isn't all that impressive. Magnus just captures it. Rook captures on a3. We have rook captures and king captures on d5. We have rook captures on a7. Now king captures on d6, and Magnus is up 2 full pawns, and he does have 2 connected pass pawns on the king side, and he has a pass pawn on the queen side. So it will be incredibly difficult for Parham to hold this. He goes knight e4 check, king to d5, and he even trades here. Knight captures, pawn captures, and rook to a5 with check. King to c4 by Magnus, and now rook to f5. Here with this move, rook to f5, Parham reaches time control, and he is now granted additional time, but it's not easy to play this. And while Magnus could continue with b5, he could give up some pawns here and just start advancing the pawn. The rook completely cuts off the white king from approaching that pawn. He plays it safe. It doesn't spoil his position, and also it doesn't require him to calculate as much as sacrificing the pawn with b5 right away. So okay, rook f4 check, king to b3. We have rook to f5 now, hoping to get that check in to win the b7 pawn, but just king a4. We have rook to f4 check, king to a5, and now rook to h4, going after the h6 pawn, but this is much safer than giving up the f pawn. So just pawn to b5. Rook captures on h6, pawn to b4. Usually a winning move, but so it is in this position as well. Pawn to e4, and now you have to decide between pawn to b3 and king to a4. Both are winning, but Magnus chooses the move which requires to be less precise in calculating, but I will just show for fun that b3 is winning. Point is that now after rook to h1, you will play b2, and after rook to b1, you can play rook to b6. It looks weird because the white king can also approach the b pawn, but after king d2, king a4, king c2, you have king a3, and now white is without a move. Whatever you play, you just get destroyed. If rook to f1, you can even resort to tricks like this. Just a queening, pawn to b1, rook captures, king captures. Now you box in the white king, you win the pawn, and that's of course a winning endgame completely. King to d4, king d2, captures, but you don't care. You have the passed pawn, pawn to f5, king f2, king f4. You have the opposition. You are winning this. If white goes this way, you go this way. If white goes this way, you go this way, and then you start pushing the pawn. So that's why b3 is also possible. Magnus decided to play king a4 first. We have pawn to e5 now. Parham finds tricky ideas here. Rook to e6, the only winning move for Magnus, but not a difficult one to spot. Rook captures on e6, rook captures on e5, king to d1, but now just rook to c5, cutting off the white king from reaching the b pawn, and there's just not all that much to do here. But Parham decided to test Magnus's endgame skill, and he continues the game. Rook to a6 check, king to b3, we have rook to d6, and now king to a3. We have rook to a6 check, king to b2, and now rook back to d6. We have pawn to b3, rook to d8, and now king to b1, preparing to further advance the b pawn, king to d2, and now pawn to b2. We have rook to a8, and now it seems like the black king is completely boxed in. There is no way to get the black king out, but Magnus shows that he knows, of course, how to win this. He plays rook to d5 check, and he was in this position on move 56 that Parham Maghsoodloo resigned the game, and Magnus gets another very nice victory, which brings him all the way, I believe, to shared third place with Wesley So. Now we have Nodrbek leading the tournament in sole first place, Anish in second place, and Magnus sharing third with Wesley So. We'll see what else happens in the tournament. Magnus still has to play Wesley, Prague, and Arjun, so it's going to be 3 incredible rounds. He's going to have the white pieces in 2 of those rounds against Wesley and Prague. So we'll see. Prague, can play a very mean game against Magnus. He already shown that he can beat him in any time format. Wesley can beat anyone in any time format, and Arjun, if on a good day he has the white pieces against Magnus, it's definitely not going to be easy. But it seems Magnus has recovered from the 2 consecutive losses. We'll see if he's able to overtake Wesley, Anish, and Abdusatrov, or will Abdusatrov just continue crushing it, or will maybe Anish take the tournament. Anything can still happen. But yeah, nicely done by Magnus here. For those of you who are maybe new to chess, here you resign because after you move the king, let's say king to c3, just king c1, and there's no way you stop the pawn. You don't even have a check. And if you don't play king to c3, you could play king to e3. That will allow you some checks via the c file, but it doesn't matter. King to c2, let's say rook to c8 with check, king to d1. Now rook to b8, you stop queening, but not a problem. Rook to d2, looks like a weird move, but it gets the job done. Rook to b7, white keeps an eye on the b1 square. Now king to c1, we have rook to b8. Now you still don't want a queen because white will just capture and then gobble up the rook, and it will be a draw by insufficient material. So you're gonna play rook to c2, and now there's nothing. King d3, and now you bring your pawn to become a queen. Rook captures, king captures, and now you checkmate the white king. So that's pretty much it. Parham tested Magnus's endgame skill, but here he thought, all right, I believe you know what is to follow. That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to show the full standings after I show at least one more game, and I'm pretty sure you guys know which one I'm talking about. So that's pretty much it. And yeah, I would like to thank Blaže Burkot, Rob, Victor David, Peter Knurich, and John Noonan for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful tournament until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.